This video was made in sponsorship with Hear Well, Be Well Clinics. Compassionate, trustworthy, and innovative. Check them out. Hi, Nick. Thank you so much for joining me on an episode of Hear Me Out. How are you doing today?
Hi, I'm very well. Thank you very much. Thank you for having me.
Yes, thank you. So I like to start off with all my guests with what is your connection to hearing loss?
I found out when I was about 10 years old that I needed hearing aids. I was sitting in class and I had this super cool Spy Kids watch on my wrist, and it apparently had an alarm on it that everyone in their classroom could hear that I couldn't hear. And the teacher was
Oh,
saying something like, "Whose alarm is that? Turn that off." And I'm like, "Yeah, turn that off." I had no idea it was me the whole time. And then I learned quite soon after that I have high frequency hearing loss. So
right.
I guess for anyone who doesn't know what that is, that's basically I hear the high frequencies in sounds at a lower volume. And in speech, a lot of that is like the Fs, the Ks, the Ts, like some of the clarity in speech. And so I can often hear that someone is talking to me. I just can't quite hear what it is exactly that they're saying. And yeah, I was like 10, I must have been about 10 years old, and I got hearing aids. I wore them for about 3 days, and then quickly decided that I actually wanted to have friends and didn't want to be the kid wearing hearing aids. And I avoided wearing them for the next 10 years. And I don't think, with the benefit of adult hindsight, I don't think that was the smartest idea
It's
going
so
through
hard
my
to know.
childhood.
Yeah.
But
Oh,
what I've learned going through this though is that I think it takes like on average around 10 years for people to go from the point where they find out they could benefit from hearing aids to actually wearing them. And so while for some people that might be from the age of 60 to 70, for me it was the age 10 to 20 that I would rather not be seen wearing hearing aids, even though it meant I was in so many embarrassing situations because I couldn't hear what people were saying. It's just such a strange thing that doesn't make any sense right now. But like at the time, it made all the sense in the world. I just didn't want this like label of disability like on the side of my head.
it does make sense though when you like think about it, especially like I mean, I began to lose my hearing at 25, so a very different stage of life than going through puberty. Like that would have probably been so hard. You're like finding yourself and all of that. So it's very interesting to hear though that stigma is a big thing that holds people back from wearing them and getting the help that we need because they're there to help us, right? Like not really to help other people. The hearing aids are there to help us experience things better. So it's very interesting that holds us back, and it makes me so sad.
Yeah, I know what you mean. But like I'm just curious on your side, did you have hearing loss prior to knowing when you were 25, or did
No.
something happen that
Yeah.
made
So
that?
I have what is called otosclerosis, and it's an abnormal bone growth in my ear. And it started on my left side, and now I'm bilateral. And I didn't wear my hearing aid for the first year. Like I would wear it when I needed to. I needed it all the time, but it took me like a year to fully accept that I needed it. And then I was like, I have to wear it. Like there's no other choice at this point. Like I need to wear it. And I had just started dating my husband at the time too. So thankfully he was so supportive and like nurturing about it that it didn't really make me feel self-conscious when I did start to wear it like regularly, but there was some self esteem issues with wearing it and like, you know,
It's so
not
strange
accepting my
that, yeah. I mean, I completely understand, and it's just so strange that we have that fear that doesn't necessarily need to be there. I mean, I often use the example of like a lot of people when they find out they need glasses, many people that will be like, oh, that's an issue for one reason or another. But for many others, it's like, oh, cool, I get to wear glasses. And I've even got some friends who don't need glasses and they'll wear frames just because they want to be seen wearing them. And I always kind of ask, like, imagine if you found out tomorrow that you needed glasses. And then imagine if you found out tomorrow that you needed hearing aids. Like, what's the emotional like response that's different? And I think, yeah, like the real difference is that like socially we have made hearing aids this thing to kind of be afraid of one way or another. And yeah, it's just such a shame that millions of people have to go through that. And I would
Well,
really
I find
hope
it
that's not something we
fascinating
need to.
that you're wearing AirPods because those are so much more noticeable than hearing aids. Like you can't even like see mine in right now, but the AirPods, people rock them and they're like, yeah, I just got some new AirPods. And like they're so proud of them. And it's like, okay, I know that they're not like the same, but it's still showing off your ears. And it's just funny that that connection, or I guess disconnect, is there. It's very funny. I find that fascinating. But I do want to talk about overtone hearing and what inspired you to start that because you have some amazing new designs for the hearing aid industry, and I want to know more.
Sure. So yeah, I was like 20 when I first started wearing hearing aids, and I only started because my dad sent me like a newspaper clipping back when newspaper clippings were what social media is today. But this newspaper clipping was of these completely invisible hearing aids. So these are phonak lyric hearing aids. And they are, I love them and I hate them. They have transformed my life because finally I would wear hearing aids because no one could see them. But that's also kind of why I hate them as well, because they just kind of underscore and reinforce that idea that you should be ashamed to be seen with hearing aids. And so I was at university at the time and I was studying product design. And as part of my dissertation, my thesis at the end of 3 years, we had the opportunity to redesign a medical product. And immediately I thought, okay, yeah, I'm gonna redesign hearing aids. And it really came under this idea that the only difference, the real core difference, is that they need to be visible. The whole industry has been focused on this idea that hopefully when they become completely invisible, then everyone is going to want them. But hearing aids are pretty much invisible. I mean, the ones I'm wearing are completely invisible, and it hasn't suddenly made everyone want hearing aids. I think, globally, still 80% of people who could wear hearing aids don't wear them. And, my hypothesis here is if you change what it means to wear hearing aids, I think you can encourage people to do so in a different way. It needs to not be like a crutch to support a disability, or at least that's not how it should be seen by society. It ought to be seen as something greater than simply that of its function. And again, going back to kind of the glasses comparison, glasses, of course, improve your eyesight, but I think there is this second function to glasses, which is how they make you look. And
Yeah.
people choose to wear this frame over that because they want to be seen wearing it. And so I always often think like if every pair of glasses looked the same, I bet loads of people wouldn't wear them because it would be like, oh, you're wearing the glasses. Like there isn't a
Yeah.
way to separate yourself from something else. And we see that like in every single thing that we wear on our bodies. Like the whole fashion industry is built on this idea of we want to be seen amongst certain tribes, we want to associate with different people, individuality or cohesiveness. It's like kind of it's such an important part of who we are as humans that if we wear something, we want it to say something about us. And that's often like, I think misinterpreted as like vanity sometimes. But I think people will even, you know, either you're wearing like a Prada coat or you're wearing like a coat from, I don't know, H&M or JCPenney or whatever, like really simple. Whatever it is, you're making some sort of statement about the kind of thing you care about. On the latter side might be, I don't care enough about status, so I'm not going to buy a Prada coat or whatever. But that is a statement. And I think like we just don't give people with hearing aids or with the need for hearing aids the ability to make that choice. So
Yeah.
that's really like the core of what this is. And so with Overtone, the whole idea is to take the existing technology that already works really well and see how can we redesign it? How can we reposition it? Not as this medical product that you ought to wear, but as this lifestyle product that you choose to wear. And I think with design, with marketing done in the right way, I think that's possible.
I think that's phenomenal. And I really like the point you made at the beginning about how like audiologists are part of the stigma problem where they're like, oh, this is the most invisible hearing aid. It's like, right, but why do I want that? Because that's your first kind of initial experience with the hearing loss world is with your audiologist, right? And they're the ones like, oh, this one's invisible. And you're like, oh no, like I'm already feeling so self-conscious. And now like I want my device to be invisible. And I'm like, that that's so stressful to me. But I love the marketing you've done with like the Nike, like I can't hear you, or the product. Like I think that's so phenomenal and really important for the hearing industry because it hasn't been done before. Like it's all the same design, like you said. It's it's very basic. It's not like it doesn't make you individual, and that's why I like to wear hearing aid jewelry because it makes me stand out differently. And I always wear my hair up, partly because hearing aids are loud with my hair, but also because I want people to see them. I want people to stop me in the street and ask me. I know that's not for everyone, but I want more conversations to happen to see like this is me. They help me. I don't care what you think of me because I wear them. I need them. I love them. I want them to be more seen like glasses because they're right in your face. Hearing aids, not quite, but yeah, I think that's amazing what you're doing.
Oh,
It's really
thank you.
exciting.
To your point, I completely agree. I think, nothing is ever going to become cool or even really accepted if everyone is trying to hide it. It
Yeah.
is just kind of I almost feel like I don't know if this is really correct, but the opposite of stigma is like confidence. It's like, and maybe not directly, but I think in order to kind of make the stigma disappear, you need to be wearing it proudly and confidently. And as you said, like it's kind of like it's not only the audiologists that kind of perpetuate the stigma, but the whole industry itself is just trying to make something invisible under the premise that you are already embarrassed. So even if people are not embarrassed, there is no way to wear something that doesn't imply that you are. And so it just keeps feeding this issue over and over again.
Mhm.
And I've even heard of some people saying, "Oh, I missed the hearing aids I had when I was a child because at least they were pink or whatever." And then when you become an adult, they're like, "Oh, skin colored or hair colored," and then you don't really have
Yeah.
much choice. And yeah, maybe to the point you made about the Nike kind of fake campaign that I did. The point of this was that like Nike is not a glasses company. Prada is not a glasses company, but they both make glasses. These are technically medical products for visual
Right.
impairment or vision impairment. And they have an opportunity to reshape that. And so something else that you're also wearing on your face, the most visible part of your body, like why not also do the same for hearing? And so if they were going to do it, I bet they would want it to be visible so that people could see it, so that people could associate their brand not
Yeah.
with the product, but with the person that's wearing it and the things that that person does. I mean, that's what affiliate marketing is at the end of the day.
Yeah.
Nike will put their logo on athletes who perform well, so then people associate Nike with the athlete who performs well. It's not really the product as much as it is the person. And they've done that with glasses. They've done that with many things. And I think Nike in particular, they're quite interesting because they've done quite a few things in the disability space.
Right.
They did this like cool pair of shoes that were like slip on. The actual sole itself kind of has like a hinge almost, and it
Yeah.
allows you to kind of like step into it and it kind of clips on over your heel. And it's great for people who have limited dexterity in their hands, prosthetics, things like that. And they've got this idea, or at least I think their core message is if you have a body, you are an athlete. And so
Right.
it's kind of, it doesn't matter if you're overweight, it doesn't matter if you're disabled, you're an athlete. It's more of a mindset thing. And we're going to just enable you to kind of achieve that or realize that, like, regardless of your physical situation. I just really like that message. And so I kind of wanted to explore how would they approach the same thing if they were to do hearing.
Yeah. I wonder if there's a lot of roadblocks though, because it's not as simple as glasses. Like there is a little bit more medical, technical stuff behind creating a hearing aid. Because I know here in Canada, at least, like there are so many regulations. Like we can't even have over-the-counter hearing aids here, even though that would help so many people with affordability issues. And it's just very fascinating the roadblocks in place that should not be there so more people can be helped. But I do think Nike, you're right. They are making a lot of moves in the right direction to include more people with their brand, which I think is quite powerful. But yeah, that would be really cool to see if they did tap into, the hearing aid industry, um, and
I
make
think
people
you're
see that it's
right.
cool. And with Apple too, like I mean, they just made their AirPods. I mean, it's not available here in Canada, but in the States, you can make your AirPods into hearing aids, which again, I think is starting making people see that, okay, I don't need to be as afraid of hearing loss as I thought I did. Like there's some mainstream cool things about it.
Mhm.
So
Yeah,
it's
no,
very
definitely.
interesting.
I think the regulatory side is like incredibly important in this conversation as well.
Oh yeah.
I think, if it was as simple as just making the product and then everyone buys it, maybe a lot more people would do it. And I mean, there is a debate to be had about whether or not the status quo is being held in that particular position in order to benefit certain players in the industry and to prevent competition. But maybe that's a conversation for another time. But I think it does just make it really challenging for smaller companies to kind of try and get into this. I mean, we are a tiny, tiny company, me and a couple of other people working on this at the moment. And it's really a case of just like trying to find a way up the mountain. And we've kind of been footing around that base camp, trying to strategize how to go in. And yeah, it's just not easy when having to get medical device registration signed off, paid for. You're talking kind of quarter of a million and
Ooh,
18 months of paperwork basically before you can kind of say certain things. And I think there is an argument to be made around there isn't a huge difference between like headphones and hearing aids with regard to the actual components. And so if the argument is to be made that hearing aids should be a medical device because they can damage your hearing, well, headphones have been damaging people's hearing for the last 15,
totally.
20 years. And that's not, it doesn't make it okay to damage one's hearing with hearing
Right.
aids. But I think like we're making it's kind of like we're selling knives, but we're not selling band-aids. Like we're making it easy to damage your hearing, but like really hard to kind of do anything about it afterwards. And I think I think it could do with some change. In the UK, where I'm from, they have well, in January, I think they said they were going to follow the US with the OTC
Okay.
um, regulation, and that was coincidentally just when Apple released their AirPods with hearing aids. So I don't know how influential Apple were in making that happen. Um, but I think there's still some things to be ironed out in order to
Totally.
make that a smooth process, especially in creating the opportunity for smaller companies to get into that space as well.
Absolutely, absolutely. And I think that's a great segue into my next question because you recently made a post about the struggles of entrepreneurship. And I'm really curious, like, what keeps you pushing through all of these like ups and downs and pushbacks and increased competition and all of these things? Like, what keeps you inspired to make Overtone like actually, sellable in the market?
Well, I mean, I feel like really fortunate that I'm working on something that I care about. I think that's like the really the crux of all of this, that I'm solving this primarily for myself. I want to have a pair of hearing aids that I actually want to wear.
Right.
And I kind of just want to make that happen. And part of it was, okay, I'm going to go down this road and just see how hard it is to happen. And it's, since I started, it's been about 4.5 years. And it's been a long time. And it's kind of like after 2 years, I'm like, I'm so far down this road. I just maybe I ought to keep going. But that's a really hard thing to do if you don't have like support from the sidelines. And I've been posting kind of videos about this design journey from the point of saying, hey, here's a problem that I want to solve. This is why I care about it. I'm gonna have a go and do it. All the way through to the point now where we're like very, very close to having our first fully working pair. And it has been a journey that I don't think I would have continued on had I not had all the comments of support along the way while making these videos. And so I kind of learned definitely going through this that I think it's really important to share the journey, but learning how to share the journey is something I'm still trying to work out. I think I personally, I'm not really very big on social media. I don't really do Instagram and I don't post updates about what I ate for dinner last night, stuff like that. And so it doesn't come to me super naturally to want to share everything.
Yeah.
Um, but I definitely can understand that, authenticity is the thing that is so rare to find in social media. And I found that incredibly difficult to be really authentic. I think the story is authentic, but I'm trying to build this for me. And I feel like I try and get that across as honestly as possible. But what I realized is that I was only sharing the successes along the way.
Mhm.
And we're like, hey, we got this new prototype, or like this cool thing happened. And that was actually only like one half of the story. So the video you mentioned was, I kind of realized that I would bring people along on this journey and not really telling them that actually a lot of it is just me like waiting for a manufacturer to get back to me or like not replying to a
Right.
request or whatever it is. And also just understanding for myself that I'm completely new to this all the time. I feel incredibly um, underskilled in some regards, but then I don't think anyone else would be able to do what I'm doing just because of the angle that I'm coming at it from. And so it's just trying to reconcile these two things of maybe some imposter syndrome alongside a real drive towards quite a clear vision that I have. Um, and yeah, it's definitely not as easy as I would like it to be, but I think any founder would probably tell you it's not like a straight linear
Oh
path.
yeah.
It's a lot of ups and downs.
Totally. And there's this one quote that I love. It's fail forward. And I honestly like repeat that to myself daily. It's like it's okay to make failures. You just have to keep going forward. Like you're always going to learn something, whether it's about yourself or the product or the business. And you just have to like use what you learn and keep going. And I agree though, authenticity is so hard. I mean, if you see my channel, like I try my best to just show up, whether it's in my pajamas or I'm like all dolled up. I just show up when I feel like I have something to share that I think will resonate with people because it resonates with me. And I've just made that my channel. I don't want it to be curated because that's not my life. It's not like I stay at home with my daughter. She's often like in the backgrounds of videos and I just show up when I can. And that's how I've tried to share my story because I feel like when I try too hard and I'm like, okay, I'm gonna make a list of like this, and this and talk about it, it comes off not authentic. And I don't like that. I'm like awkward and weird in my videos because that's who I am. It's just it's hard, especially when it's a brand though, too, because it's not necessarily it is your journey, but you are also sharing about a specific product or a brand. So it's yeah, I can imagine that being
Yeah,
difficult.
it's hard. I've been given some advice along the way though, which is kind of that until you're a lot further down the line, you are the brand.
Yeah, it's
And
true.
I think in many ways that's kind of true. I am Overtone. Overtone is me. We don't even have a
Nice.
product to sell quite yet. That's me for now. But but I think it is yeah, I think the hard thing about authenticity that I find is that I'm trying to be authentic with the idea in mind that everyone's attention span is so short. And
Yeah.
so if I was 100% authentic, it would be me probably mumbling to myself and not really knowing what to say to the camera and taking 27 takes to say the same thing or whatever it is. I think that'd be quite boring to watch. So it's about finding the balance in between of like what is real, what is you? What are the ups? What are the downs? Not necessarily looking for or looking outwardly for affirmation or kind of celebrations in one way or another. Um, but then at the same time, being conscious of the fact that you're asking for people's attention,
Yeah,
and you want to be able to deliver something that is that resonates with them and makes them want to cheer you along. So it's a tough one to kind of to weigh up.
absolutely, absolutely. And I'm really curious, what do you think is one of the biggest misconceptions about like the hearing aid or hearing health world that you kind of encountered through this entire process?
Oh wow. I think there's a couple of things. I mean, like there's one thing on the audiology side and one thing on the I don't want to say patient side, but on the
Okay.
everyone else side, right? And so maybe let's start with that. I think most people don't understand what sound is. And I say that as someone myself. Like I think we don't really understand how sound works. And there is a huge amount that we don't understand about how hearing works as well. And I think so for instance, a lot of people will think, oh, you have hearing loss. So it's kind of like on the television, you just turn the volume down. Like that's what it's like. And it's like, oh, well, not necessarily. It's like only certain frequencies are lower than others, and they find it, I mean, like, I definitely found it hard to kind of understand what all the different sound frequencies also represent with regard to speech as well, like vowels being a lot of lower frequencies and consonants being some of the higher frequencies and a full spectrum in between and either side. And so trying to explain to people how hearing aids work is important not only for the understanding of how sound works, but like why they are as complex as they are. And so, especially when you're trying to justify why they cost so much. And I think when a lot of people benchmark hearing aids alongside headphones, they go, oh, well, my AirPods cost 200 euros. Like, why do these cost so much more? Um, and there's a number of reasons, but one is there's a lot more complex software that is needed to process and try and reinterpret sound and turn it into one thing or another. Um, so yeah, that's definitely on the kind of the public side. On the audiology side, I mean, spoken to so many amazing audiologists over the last few years, and I agree with so many of them on so many things. But I think a lot of audiologists and hearing care professionals are quite indoctrinated by this idea of hearing aids need to be hidden and they need to
Right.
be tiny, and that's what everyone wants. And so I've had some comments on some videos that I've made going, oh, none of my patients would want to wear these because all they care about is invisible hearing aids. And I feel it's a bit like, well, if you've never seen anything else, of course you're going to want invisible
Yeah.
hearing aids. I think it was Steve Jobs who said something like, oh no, not Steve Jobs. Henry Ford, I think, said something along the lines of, like, if you asked people what they wanted, they would have said a faster horse. And that was before the invention of the car. I think it's
Right.
like general public, all of us, we don't really know what we want until it's placed in front of us.
So
And
true.
in the hearing industry, there hasn't been any alternative to this idea of medical hearing aids for disability. Keep them hidden and small, and because that's what you want, and no one's offered them an alternative. So I think, yeah, it's something that I think is a bit misunderstood on the audiology side that I wish a lot more people would come around to, that I don't think it has to be that way.
I think those are both very good misconceptions, 100% in the industry. I cost is a big conversation, which is like a totally other video that we could probably dive into, because there
Yeah.
are so many factors that people just don't think about. But yeah, those are really great points. And how can people learn more about Overtone? How can we help your brand become a purchasable brand? Like, how can we help you? Where can we find you?
Yeah, so I mean, I post videos, like I was saying, about the whole design journey. So you can find me on Instagram, my website or TikTok. All of them are overtone.so. And I think if anyone wants to help, it really is a case of just be a follower for now. Share this if you find it interesting. Uh, I think a lot of people that I've ended up speaking to or who have become followers in one way or another have come across this not as someone with hearing loss, but as someone who knows someone else with hearing loss. And they've shared that with someone else. And so I think a lot of the time when I'm making content, I'm trying to speak to a wider audience than simply individuals like myself with hearing loss, because I think it's something that a lot of people can benefit, at least from understanding, and then go ahead and share that with other people. So at the moment, we're building a wait list of people. There's around 2,500 people on the wait list so far, which is really cool. And this is really helping us when we go to investors and say, hey, we're going to need a lot of money to build these first products. It's super expensive building hardware, medical hardware. And the more kind of proof of demand and interest that we can show, the easier it is to convince investors to take that risk and come along with us.
That's awesome. That's so exciting. And that's a brilliant point about the wait list. Well done. That's amazing. I'm so excited for Overtone Hearing and for you to share more about your story. And thank you so much for coming on today. This has been a phenomenal conversation.
Oh, thank you so much for having me.